All right, well, it doesn't look like it. A lot of good progress has been made. New shielded run from this point to the vibe trim volume. New connections from the coupling cap outputs of the previous stages going to the inputs of these pots, the volume for the normal channel and the brilliant channel. And on the original amp, there would have been a 220K resistor from here and a 220K resistor from here, both going to this point, which is an input coupling cap of the phase inverter. And there are two issues with that. Number one, this one has the add-on top boost, so the feed from this volume pot will not be going to there. It'll be going to the next tube stage and the add-on card, and the treble wiper from there will come to this point with the 220K resistor. So structurally, there's an issue with supporting that connection. And second of all, as you can see in the video of the last, I think it was a 65 JMI that I had in here, there's always the likelihood of channel bleed, and then you get oscillations and you get weird sounds and not nice things happening. So what I'm going to do is run a shielded wire, telescope shielded wire, to the input of this grid. And I'm going to bring it here, and I'm going to shield it to the bus wire here, which will then let me join it, with a good mechanical support to a 220K mixed resistor to this volume, and temporarily to this one. And then when I do the top boost, it'll join that same place. So between the short span here and the strength that the shielded wire will give, that will have a nice structural support, and due to the shielding, we should be able to eliminate a lot of crosstalk. Now, I'm going to build a temporary network here, because we're going to first test this with just top boost and brilliant without, normal and brilliant without the top boost card added. And then once everything else in the amp is healthy, we'll go to that top boost add-on card, which is a third-party later addition, and see how stable things will be. So the first thing I want to do is I want to do my shielded run. Now, this is the telescoped end where the ground is not connected. It's going to go here. So I have the braid twisted on itself and bent over. And then I will slide some heat shrink over that. And if you do it this way, you can see inside here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. You don't want any of that, the inner conductor, to be exposed. And if you do it this way, then there can't be any little strands of wire poking out, can't short out. So all right, for those wondering, it's a Mogami 2330. It's a very nice cable to use for this kind of stuff. It's very thin, it's flexible. It is a spiral wrap, very easy to work with. It can be prone to more microphonics than some of the other Mogamis, which have that black layer over the center conductor insulation. But it is small and flexible, and I'm doing short runs. So I'm not really concerned about microphonics or anything like that. I just want it to be unobtrusive and reliable. So I know it's going to go here, and it's going to come up to about here. I think I'm going to give myself some slack. And I think I'm actually going to run it up top like this, so it's farther away from the other stuff, up against the chassis. I might even wrap it around. Might even be better if I wrap around the cut circuit. That's a little tricky because of the output signal present there. I think that ought to do. So I'm going to prep this end of it before I put it in place, because it's really hard to do when it's in situ. So I'm just going to make some guesstimates here. All right, I've got quite a bit of excess. I know I won't need this much. This is that spiral wrap which is really nice to work with compared to braid. Maybe in theory, a braid gives a better shield, and it's certainly a more rugged connection. So for an instrument cable, perhaps a braided one is better. For this purpose, though, the flexibility and ease of soldering is great. So let me get this braid ready. Sorry to do that off camera, but I can see things in the distance and I can see things really close. The middle distance is tough, but FedEx is at the door. Be right back. Okay, well, FedEx just brought something really groovy that you'll be seeing in some upcoming videos. But as I was saying, I can see things in the far distance. I can see things really close. Middle distance is tough. So I had to bring this really close to me. It's just unspiraling the braid and wrapping around itself. So what I want to do here is I want to tin the end here so it's unlikely to unwind on me as I wrap it. I'm going to do this off camera, then I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so you can see I've got the end here tinned and this not tinned. This just keeps it from undoing. Now there are two ways you can do a connection like this. The mil spec is to bend this back like the other one, only longer, and solder a small wire to that braid and then wrap the whole thing in heat shrink like this. So you have another small wire coming out like that. And that can be great. That's not how the other shielded wire in this JMI was. It's not how Vox ever did it. And the span I'm doing is so small that I don't think the full NASA mil spec is necessary. I'm quite capable of doing it. I've done it many times when I thought it was necessary. So if anyone wants to play Captain Well Actually, find something else to do. So I'm going to wrap it around here and solder that. And I'll probably have to move the camera to do that. So just a second. Okay, it's now going here and has no real excess, but it has no real slack. I can press it up against the wall of the chassis. I can move that a little bit more. I'll do that in a second. Here, I've got enough excess that will be able to go to my temporary mixed resistor network. And then when I finish it up, I'll be able to shorten this for the final. You got to plan these things out. And that ground required a lot of cleaning of that area of the bus wire because the wire had corroded over the years, which is fairly typical, and I expected it. So let me do some stuff about these old resistors and we'll start to repopulate this area a little bit. All right, this is a very good place to be. I have retained 3 of the original components in the phase inverter inputs, the 2.1 megs and the 1.2K. I'm awaiting a new 47K to arrive. It'll be here in the next day or two. I'm trying to see if the original 1.5K cathode for shared by the cathodes of the 2 triodes for the normal and brilliant channel is still good. If it's still good, it can stay. New plate resistors for each channel. New shared cathode bypass cap. This is a really nice Vichy. Will last probably decades. It's a 63 volt cap, 105 degrees, should last a really long time. It's rated for like 10,000 hours at 63 volts. So at the maybe 2 volts it'll experience in here, should last a good long while. New class 2 ceramic disc cap here, same for the bright cap. I've got a temporary mix resistor network here. That's why I left this excess. That'll be finalized once the top boost card is put back. I've got a new dropper here, new plates, new grid leaks. I don't just get a bag of resistors, especially with the silver band, and pop them in. I measure. There's a certain range within the selection of resistors available to me, and I measure for specific values I want. and matching where I want, making things asymmetrical where I want. I'm not going to go down that road because that's, a girl's got to have her secrets. That's some of the what people describe as mojo. It's very scientific about load lines and such, but I don't want to go too far into my explanations. But people seem to like the choices I make. New capacitor here for the tone cut circuit. The amp, when it came in, had a whole bunch of Sozos, which are well regarded on the internet. A lot of the hoopla about Sozos referred to the original line of Sozos, and those are no longer made in the same fact. The Sozos are now called Synergy, and someone else bought the Sozo brand, and it has the Led Zeppelin looking kind of logo on it, and the whole thing is Jimmy Page's amp said Zoso. These say Sozo, ooh, tone. Well, the ones that people liked originally are now called Synergy, and the ones that are still called Sozo, to me, they're fine. They're fine. I'm using this Vishay MKT 1813. I think they're better. They're physically smaller. They have a well-marked outer foil. The leads, crucially, are thicker than on the Sozos. And also the bodies are not as long. So I don't have very much strain put on these fragile old tags. But these can really bear their mass. They're not going to vibrate around. They're not going to get bent over easily. And I have not put the output coupling caps in place yet, because one of the next things I'm going to do is replace a bunch of this wiring and get down here once this wire is out of the way and clean up and redo the grounds in here and run a new ground wire from here to this filter cap. And I got to reclamp it because this had never, this screw holding the clamp had disappeared a long time ago. And then I have some a ground for the Vibe trim filter cap to run as well, and also one for the add-on top boost circuit. Those are gonna either go to the same point, or I might tie it to another ground point physically close to that that's already tied there. I'm gonna make the decision once I get that area clean. But as funky as the chassis was down by the output sockets, it's the same way down here where all the preamp grounds are made. Sometimes it's better to lift this wire from the chassis ground going to this, I guess it's this one, going from the chassis ground to this bus wire. And you can leave some grounds there, but all the stuff on the bus wire, it can be better to run a ground from that bus wire to a new point over by the input jacks. Gets into how the chassis behaves as a shield and dumping RF. I will do that if after everything else the amp has noise or is prone to RFI issues or whatever. But, it's a 63, it's a JMI. There aren't a lot of 63 JMIs in the US. By the time people in America wanted Voxes, they were reacting to the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and then later the Stones and the Kinks and everyone. So those the ones you tend to see in America tend to be the 65 and later. Of course, you end up just as many Cambridges and Super Beatles as you do AC30s. I digress. But a nice quality 63 like this, and as much work as this needs, this is still a very nice quality 63 and will sound fantastic again soon. You want to take your time and get things right and not rush things and not make changes just for the sake of change. Some other things like moving the ground for this filter cap over here rather than having it over here where the AC cable ground is, that can make sense. I want to move that filter stuff away from any noisy stuff in the AC supply. But, I'm not just gonna make everything look the same. Every amp that comes in doesn't have to come out looking the same or having the same build. If I get a high watt in, it'll go back out built like Harry Joyce did. If I get a JMI in, it'll it'll come back looking like pretty much like JMI did it. I guess I should mention this. I did give the owner the option of sourcing new old stock in Bradley's. He didn't want to have that cost. I found Vichy gold foil, tropofoil caps available from Germany, just like these old ones. And the caps necessary would have been about $110 with shipping. The owner didn't want to spend that money, and that's fine. I said that's for the people who like to look at the amps, and that's cool on one level. This will sound pretty much the way it did when it was new. Once this is all done, it will have the authentic sound. People put so much into trophy foils, blah blah blah. There's two different WEMAs that they use. The brown ones fall apart. The gold ones are good. They use Hunts. They use Eries. They used what met their spec that they got a good price on that week. And you get amps with mix and match capacitors from different vendors. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the sound of these modern Vichy MKT 1813s.